Good morning, TUSD colleagues, and thank you for participating in our first ever and hopefully last ever virtual school year kickoff for 2020-21. There's no substitute for being present together, so this morning we will do our very best to connect remotely and inspire virtually. I'd like to begin by welcoming everyone, particularly those new to Turlock Unified, which includes 17 certificated staff and 8 classified staff. Last month, I had the opportunity to meet with 15 of the 17 new certificated staff under social distancing guidelines to welcome them and learn more about their professional preparation, goals, and interests in our district. I was excited to hear that many of them chose our district because of our culture and support for new teachers. Thank you, Denise Duell, for creating a model to follow induction program that aspiring teachers in our region are now drawn to us in TUSD. And of course, I was very thankful to hear of their comfort and readiness to begin their professional journey within our distance learning models. Welcome to all 25 of you, and thank you again for choosing the S in TUSD. Many come, most stay, and with this being my 30th year in our district, I can confidently say it's truly a great district to begin and end your professional career. I'd like to also welcome and thank our school board members for joining us this morning. President Lori Carlson, Clerk Frank Lima, and members Ken Malik, Anthony Silva, Jeffrey Cortines, Mary Jackson, and Miranda Chalabi. At this time, I'd like to invite President Carlson to share her message to all TUSD staff as we kick off another school year that definitely feels very different and a little awkward than any of us have ever experienced. In fact, I'll bet that each of us right now feels like we're in our first year of our current position. Very strange, but so true. Welcome, Lori, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Greetings to TUSD staff, and welcome to one of the most unimaginable, unforeseeable beginnings to a school year any of us could have envisioned 365 days ago. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to extend my thanks to each of you. Many of you worked tirelessly throughout the spring and summer, creating opportunities for students to eat nutritious food, to have safe and healthy learning environments, and to support the large and intricate network that makes up Turlock Unified School District. We see you, we appreciate you, and we are so grateful for you. As someone with positivity as one of my top strengths, I can't help but hold some optimism as I look ahead to the 2020-21 school year. I know it will present challenges that are predictable and ones we don't yet know about, and will require nimbleness, adaptability, creativity, and passionate commitment from all of us. I trust we each have what we need to do our part to make this school year the best it can be for our students. My hope for each of us is that we've found balance and rhythms for our own self-care during this season that has turned into our new normal. Ways to relieve stress, express emotions, take care of our bodies physically, mentally, and emotionally. We know we will be welcoming students initially into our virtual classrooms and eventually to our actual classrooms, school cafeterias, offices, buses, and playgrounds. Students who are dysregulated from this formidable season they are navigating. My hope is that each of us have identified ways to maintain emotional regulation and groundedness in our own lives, so we can help students find the same grounded space that creates a positive environment for learning. I appreciate the social emotional learning that TUSD is embedding into the virtual school day, which I think will bear fruit in all of our lives. Additionally, I'm grateful for the focus on equity that is at the forefront of planning for the 2020-21 school year. I recognize the efforts that have been made to move TUSD forward toward a more equitable platform for student learning and achievement, but also agree with administration and staff that we can do so much more. I look forward to seeing the outcomes that our collective work and learning will accomplish this year. Thank you for your commitment to excellence in your respective professions as you serve the students and families in our community. Now more than ever, I admire your professionalism, high commitment, and creativity as we move into uncharted territory together. I wish each of you a great start to a new and different school year.
Thank you for that inspiring message, Lori, and for the commitment you and our board colleagues continue to provide our district and school communities. Add a pandemic to the mix, and your time and energy is even more remarkable and necessary. I'd also like to give a shout out to my executive team and office staff, Heidi, Dave, Marjorie, Barney, Roberta, Sherry, and Marie, for their last 6 months of all in and let's do this together mindset, as well as to those who are leading with your best interests at heart. TTA's Christine Rowell and Jennifer Collins, CSCA's Dominic Bagnani and Lisa Narciso, and TFCE's Cecilia Chavez and Diane Springer. They have made leading doable during a very difficult time. This morning, I'd like to take the opportunity to reinforce what will be our most important efforts and work this school year, keeping each other and our students engaged with equity at the forefront. Over the last 5.5 months, we've all come to recognize the impact our schools, staff, and resources provide to our students and their families. Your efforts reach far and wide. It's become apparent that our schools are much more than simply a place to learn. Parents in our community have come to realize and appreciate the positive impact on students that have been missing for nearly half a year. These include relationships with caring staff, daily supervision for safety, necessary nutrition, health and social emotional wellness, and a safe place to thrive. Our work has always been tremendous, but it's recognized as even greater now. We know intuitively what research tells us. Humans are more likely to learn at high levels when they are genuinely interested and interacting with learning. Sitting and watching, as you are now in this webinar, is not an effective means of engagement, not for adults, and even more so for young people. I say this as a new grandmother who has resolved to nightly FaceTime with my 16-month-old granddaughter, Quinn. It's just not the same. It will be imperative that student engagement is maximized while we work collectively to minimize obstacles. Knowing that many of our students have likely experienced stress and in some cases trauma related to food insecurity, housing loss, broken families, and family deaths, it is essential that we respond with compassion and care as we have done since last March. The need for responsiveness that includes courage and confidence has never been greater. Recent studies conducted at Harvard conclude that opportunities for reflection improve learning and performance. John Dewey, philosopher and educator, said it best: "We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience." This will hold true for all of us when we look back and reflect on this period of time that has felt distant and frightening, and yet challenged us to find different ways for doing old things more efficiently and safely. For our students, the power of small and large group conversations and thinking is something our students will need after having spent little time engaged in thought and discussion for quite some time. They will need our wisdom, positivity, and open minds to help return them to a state of self-assurance and balance. We must also remember that busy work for students may create busy work for adults and might not be the most effective use of energy and efforts to mitigate learning loss. Frankly, it's okay to provide students with more opportunities to share, reflect, and synthesize. It may become some of their greatest learning and growth during our current pandemic climate. It may become our road to personal and professional balance as well. This quote by James Comer has been a part of the us in TUSD for several years. It reminds us of the power and influence a relationship can make on our students' learning. No significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. We know from experience that connections have always been critical to our students' success and development, and even more so during our current pandemic reality. Since March, I have learned of and spoken to well over 100 stakeholders, students, parents, and staff who've shared their frustrations and battles with isolation, depression, and self-regard, and their need to feel connected and recognized again for who they are, what they are experiencing, and how they can become more balanced and in control. The power of a text message, phone call, email, or Zoom shout out has never been greater for everyone. Myself, Executive Cabinet, and our team of site principals have committed to one daily conversation with a parent beginning Monday, August 24th, in an effort to connect more and support the work of our teachers and students during our distant learning phase. That's just over 100 families per week. I challenge you to join our efforts to connect more. In addition to heightening engagement for our students and ourselves, high levels of equity are at the forefront of our work as we embark on a very non-traditional school year opening. As educators and those who influence our students' success, we need to collectively commit to doing whatever it takes to make sure that every student has the opportunity to access the best education available anywhere and the support they need to succeed in TUSD. We have a moral imperative to ensure that every student receives a premier education that only some currently experience. I've spent a great deal of time in conversation with my colleague Mary Asgill this summer and a number of equally motivated and concerned staff and students who are compelled to help us with this very important work that will further support the work of our Equity Task Force. We know our actions are much more significant than our words, and it will take a growth mindset to become the role models and inspiration that our students need from all of us. Thank you, Mary, and Equity Action community. In addition to conversations with colleagues, students, and community members, I've spent much of my summer consumed in articles, books, YouTube videos, and TED Talks surrounding positivity, equity, uncomfortable conversations, and cultural proficiency. Collectively, the message has been clear. Overcoming prejudice begins with identifying unconscious biases and trying to rewire our brains to welcome differences and think and behave more inclusively. Creating this culture for our students, each other, and our community will require each of us to carefully examine our own work and relationships to support and celebrate diversity. It can be done. It needs to be done. We will get it done. I accept full responsibility to lead this critical, essential work for our school and district communities, but I cannot do it alone. Embracing this message every day will remind each of us how impactful our presence and words can be on others. Be somebody who makes everybody feel like a somebody. This is a quote I try to live by because, like you, I often reflect on those I have interacted with throughout my lifetime whose energy and positivity were contagious and inspiring. They gave me the optimism and the confidence I needed to stay the course and maintain belief in all. Each of you who are sharing in this webinar today do the same quite often and probably without any additional effort. Why? Because as educators, we chose a profession that would make a difference for young people. So we do what needs to be done to accomplish this without hesitation and often thought. However, our students' needs are great at this time, so your efforts may need to be more overt than usual to fill their minds and hearts with hope and purpose. The first bell is approaching Wednesday, and I want to personally thank you for your intentionality to connect and inspire your students, their families, and each other. Thank you for having your energies include high levels of student engagement and a moral compass for educational equity. Thank you for everything you're about to do to make the world a better place for our students and community. And now, without further ado, I'd like to hand off the mic and the screen to an expert in the area of emotional intelligence and mindfulness, Ronnie Habib. Ronnie's work was brought to my attention by two of my Earl colleagues early last spring, Laura Wenstrand and Jill Temple. Both had the unique opportunity to learn and reflect from Ronnie, and they encouraged me to bring his authentic message of balance to TUSD to support our professional work and personal care. Thank you, Laura and Jill, and welcome to TUSD, Ronnie. Take it away.
Dana, thank you so much for this beautiful introduction. It's been such an honor to get to know you just over the last few months and to just see how much you deeply care about the wellness of your students, but also the wellness of your staff. And it's not a given for every leader, and so it's been inspiring to me, so thank you for that. And hi, everybody. It's such an honor for me to be with you this morning. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'd much rather be with you in person than to speak to a screen, just as I imagine you'd much rather be with your kids, your students in person rather than doing it on Zoom. That said, I just want to tell you the reason I feel so honored to support you today is because in my mind, you are heroes. And I know it sounds a little cheesy, but having taught for 15 years, I know that teaching is already taxing emotionally, mentally, physically. And in a year where we face a triple crisis with the pandemic, social injustices, budget cuts, and there's so much uncertainty, you are getting up and you are meeting the call that our society needs in terms of supporting your kids, so the students, and supporting their families. And to me, that's beautiful. It's powerful. It's selfless. And, as an educator, having been an educator for a while, I know some of you might be saying, well, I'm no hero. I'm just doing my job. It's just my job. And on the one hand, it's true. You are just doing your job. But on the other hand, who else is meeting the call to really support kids and their families now? And so, yes, to me, absolutely are heroes. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the work that you do. You know, when I got my teaching credential, I was told that when kids get to school, I'm not just a teacher. I'm to assume the philosophy of in loco parentis, which means basically to put myself in the shoes of a parent by assuming the obligation of a parent to a child. And in a time where we're physically isolated and our students technically are not, walking into our buildings, I actually feel like connection matters more than ever and more than anything. And I love Dana's words about that. And also your board members' words, the importance, how important connection is right now. Taking the time to really connect with them, not just as students, but as people, as humans first. Really seeing them, getting their experience, showing that we care. It's amazing, more than anything, more than promotions, more than even praise, people want to feel seen and gotten by others. But one of the things that we really need to be aware of as educators, especially now with COVID, is that we cannot be effectively emotionally available to others unless we are emotionally available to ourselves. Like, I'll say it again, you cannot be effectively emotionally available to others unless you're emotionally available to yourself. Now, as you tend to your wellness and your self-care and your emotional intelligence, even this time of crisis can turn into a time of growth and opportunity. And my intention with this short time that we have is to provide you with a number of tools that can help you connect with your students and colleagues, becoming a better teacher, a better educator and leader, but also to support you with your resilience and well-being during this difficult time that we're all facing right now. Now, just a bit about me before we delve in. I'm the founder of EQ Schools. I've supported more than 100 schools just in the state of California and internationally, bringing positive psychology, applied mindfulness, and emotional intelligence tools and to the classrooms and to schools. And I live in Santa Cruz with my amazing wife and my 2 kids, and I really love what I do. I love my life. And with that, I'll just be totally honest, life has definitely not always been this peachy or great. I actually started EQ Schools because of a tragedy that I experienced as a teacher. So I get to school one day, I park my car, I get out of my car and walk towards my classroom. The intercom goes off, tells us we have an emergency staff meeting. I walk to the choir room and basically sit down and I wait to hear what's going on. Our principal comes in and tells us that we have an emergency staff meeting. And so, and for it is because one of our students committed suicide. And when I heard that, I was praying that it wasn't my student. And when she said the name, obviously I was shocked, right? I was devastated. High school is a big school. She said the name, it was my student. And it broke me. But I had about a few minutes to just recover and go support kids. And I did that day. I supported kids all day. And at the end of the day, his mother asked me to speak in his funeral. So I go to the church that Saturday. I see the mother speak about her child. And then I see the dad speak about his child. And then it was my turn to go up and speak. And at the end of my speech, I don't know if this ever happened to you all. And this might sound a little like Santa Cruz Triagi hippie, okay? So I'm sorry if that sounds like that to you, but I literally had a voice channel through me that told me, if I'm going to continue to be an educator, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that was going to stop me from putting my students' well-being first. Nothing. And so I decided to create a class called Positive Psychology. I was praying 25 students would sign up. 107 signed up. And I started using a lot of the tools that I used in Positive Psych in my other classes because they were transformative for kids. And that's how EQ School started. I started training other teachers on how to do a lot of these things. But a year into EQ Schools, I had a really big epiphany a year into really doing a lot of this professional development with teachers and the epiphany is that we can give kids a ton of tools. And even this year, right, with COVID, we can give them a lot of SEL, emotional well-being tools. And that's great. However, as educators, we have, when we make the decision to grow our capacity for self-awareness, for self-regulation, for social awareness, for growth mindset, that's when we and our students benefit most. Not only for well-being, by the way, but for equity as well. Think about the work that we have to do with equity. If you want to look at unconscious bias, sometimes that brings up shame. And so how do we regulate our shame? So that we can then grow from it and really be there people and really be empathic to their experience. So the first tool I want to give to you today is called rhythmic breathing. I'll share my slides with you now. The reason I bring this tool up is because, let me just see, I'm going to share my screen. The reason that I'm sharing this first tool with you, by the way, if you want the slides, you just go to bit.ly/Turlock-EQ. It is case sensitive, and you're going to get all the slides, okay? So the first tool is, again, rhythmic breathing. By the way, you can also see the link to the slides at the bottom of each slide here. So feel free to get on that whenever you want. Rhythmic breathing is one of the most powerful ways to regulate our nervous system. The reason I'm bringing this up now is because during COVID, in this time of crisis where we have to teach, from Zoom and everything, stuff's going to come up, right? Stuff probably already is coming up for you now, just with what's my first lesson going to look like, all of that. And when our nervous system is hijacked, we get into fight, flight, or freeze. Rhythmic breathing allows us to downregulate our nervous system, to basically think from our prefrontal cortex, being able to productively engage in the world and with more peace. And so I want to invite you into doing this with me, and I actually highly encourage you to do this with your students. So if you're open to it, I'd love for you to get into a mindful body position. That is your back is straight, your hands are on your desk or your lap. And I invite you to close your eyes, but if you're too tired, please don't close your eyes. You can kind of keep your eyes half open, gazed at the floor. And we're not going to spend too much time with this, but I do think it's important that we just take a moment to arrive, to ground ourselves. This is going to be so important for you this year. You're going to go through so much, and it's important to give yourself a moment of peace, at least once a day. Every one of you deserves at least one moment of peace every day. So with your back straight, your hands on your lap, your eyes closed, I invite you to take a deep breath in, and you can breathe out. And now what we're going to do is, with the next few breaths, is we're going to breathe into the count of 4, we're going to hold for 4, and we're going to breathe out to the count of 8. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to invite you for one more breath to do it. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, I invite you to keep your eyes closed. Just notice how your system feels. Notice how your body feels right now. From this place, I actually would love you to visualize something with me just for a moment. I want you to visualize the face of a child that you love. This can be your own child. This can be a niece, nephew, it can be a student. If you have multiple, choose your favorite. Okay, just kidding. But choose one. And really imagine this beautiful child smiling at you. And as you imagine them smiling at you, I'd love for you to just allow your body, allow your system to just get filled up with joy. And I'm going to ask you a very simple question. And the question is, what do you wish the most for this child? First word that comes to you. What do you want the most for them in their life? Just the first word that comes to you. Just notice. Go ahead and take another deep breath in. And with your exhale, you may slowly open your eyes. And I ask this question to a lot of educators, many thousands every year. And what's really amazing is the vast majority of people say happiness, right? And so I imagine that some form of happiness, contentment, something like that came up for you. By the way, if you didn't say happiness, you're still a wonderful person. But what's really amazing is that we as educators care so much about the well-being of our kids. And yet when it comes to school, it can kind of get shoved aside a little bit because we're so worried about academics. And yet there's a lot of research to show that when we take the time to increase, the well-being of our students and our own well-being, it's easier to teach actually, and academic achievements improve. So they're not mutually exclusive. It turns out that there are 5 elements that contribute to anyone's well-being. And there's an acronym, a 4-letter acronym called RAMP that goes over these elements. If we focus on these elements, our well-being and our students' well-being will go up. R stands for relationships, having supportive relationships in our life, social support. A stands for 2 things: awareness, being present, being here, and advancement, personal growth. M stands for meaning, being connected to our purpose. Why are we here? Being connected to your fire. Why are you an educator? Like remembering that. And P stands for experiencing positive emotions. And ideally, people who thrive in the world experience a 3-to-1 ratio of positive emotions to difficult emotions and interactions. Now, and by the way, most Americans are at a 1-to-1. So there's another tool that I want to give you, and that's called emotional resonance. Emotional resonance actually allows us to increase our relationships, A, awareness, and also P, positive emotions, very quickly with our students and also in our personal lives with our loved ones when we experience that. Emotional resonance is basically when brains, the limbic system of the brain, emotional brains, are in sync in a positive way. Okay, and you can experience it in many different ways. You can experience it through a hug, through really being listened to, but the fastest way to experience emotional resonance is actually through laughter. Okay, and the fastest way to experience laughter is to play, because when people play together, people learn and work better together. So what I'm encouraging you to do is actually to take the time to engage in some of these, some games and some activities with your students. And I want to give you just a few of them that can be really powerful to do with students, even on day 1. So the first one is a game called Pass the Ball and Name. And what you do is you open up Zoom, okay, and you basically tell us, you welcome the students in and basically tell them, okay, hey, I have this imaginary ball. Do you see it? I'm going to pass it to someone, and that person's going to catch it and then pass it to someone else. So for example, you might say Tommy, and Tommy's going to catch it, and then Tommy's going to say Lisa, and Lisa catches it, et cetera, et cetera. And what you end up seeing is that kids, eventually they catch the ball and then they dribble it or they twirl it around, and kids begin to laugh and connect with one another. And it's a really powerful, fast way for kids to laugh together and experience that resonance. Another game you could play is 2 Truths and a Lie. Another thing is you could actually ask anyone if they have a joke to tell, school appropriate joke. But you can be like, hey, does anybody have a joke to tell? And almost every time, I've had students say, yeah, I want to tell a joke. And even if the joke is lame, people can still laugh and connect. You could even dance with them if you want. That there's so many things you could do in the beginning. Even just if you do one thing right in the beginning for a few minutes makes such a difference, even if it's for 1 minute. Or if you don't want to do game, here's a really simple way to really create connection. First, ask your students on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing today? And have them share it in the chat and make it super clear that all answers are valid, and that you highly value authenticity and vulnerability. It's okay for them to be a 9 out of 10. It's okay for them to be a 2 out of 10. Share how you're doing as well. Students love it when we're authentic. And if a student's having a hard time, even just validating that you're seeing that and offering a little bit of empathy goes a long way. You could even start the lesson, so it's a 1 to 10 check-in. You can start the lesson also with asking this question: hey, what or who are you grateful for today? And just have them share it either in the chat or verbally, depending on how much time you have. And if you want more strategies, by the way, go to this link, bit.ly/EQ web skills, you'll get some more strategies. Look, these moments of deepening relationships and experiencing the positive emotions that comes with the connections, they're crucial not only for your well-being and your students' well-being, they're actually crucial for learning. Research actually shows that positive emotions flood our brains with dopamine and serotonin. These are chemicals that not only make us feel good, but also help us organize new information and keep that information in the brain longer and retrieve it faster later on. These chemicals enable us to think more quickly and creatively and become more skilled at complex problem solving. Think about the edge that gives your students when they learn and also the edge it gives you when you teach them. But another advantage that's really powerful is that it actually brings everyone together. You know, your students are coming into your lessons from like one student just finished playing PlayStation, another student just woke up, another student just saw their parents fight, and they're coming from different places. And so when you take a moment and center them, do rhythmic breathing or play a game or any of those things, it actually brings your students to be more mindfully with you, more present. And actually these games allows you to be more present and mindful also. You see, in life, we can do things in one of two ways. We can do them mindfully or mindlessly. And I think as educators, it's easy for us to be mindless. You know, as people, it's easy for us to be mindless. You know, and when we're mindless, I think, you know, a lot of time we spend, you know, so much time worrying about the future or ruminating about the past that we're not here. You know, if you're honest with yourself, how much time do you spend in the past or in the future, right? Like when you're in your head, as opposed to being here, fully here. And I think that when we're mindless, we can fall into a lot of traps, like not being aware of, you know, when we're burning out, not even noticing we're burning out, not communicating effectively, you know. Also even believing disempowering beliefs that are not even true. So tool number 3 is for you, every 90 minutes, as much as you possibly can, take a 5 to 15-minute recovery break and reconnect to your body. And the reason reconnecting to your body is important is because the body brings us to the present moment. These breaks allow you to slow down enough to notice what your brain is feeding you. And they also allow you to be more peaceful and to have basically more control over the kind of future that you want to create. Okay. And I know this sounds a bit woo-woo, but let me just boil this down for you. By the way, there's a lot of research to show that we have to have, you know, mindful breaks during the day. And what that you could do a meditation, you could do a quick workout, you can walk outside and really notice the trees, or have a really good conversation with a friend. But basically give yourself these moments. They're so important, especially now during COVID. So the reason that this will allow you to actually be a lot more mindful about how to create your own life and create your future is because, well, I'll share this with a story. Think of this scenario, okay? This is a scenario from The Happiness Advantage written by Sean Aker. Imagine that you're going to a bank, okay? And after you go into the bank, and after you came in and you wait in line, there's 50 people there. After you came in, a robber comes, and then that person shoots his pistols once, and you happen to get hit in the arm. Now, if you were to describe this, you know, scenario honestly to your friends and coworkers the next day, do you describe yourself as lucky or unlucky? Right now, even though the responses will differ dramatically, the point is that every brain, when I ask you this question, every brain does the exact same thing. It invents, and this is an important word, a counterfact. A counterfact is an alternate scenario our brain creates to help us evaluate and make sense of what really happened, okay? If you said unlucky, you invented a counterfact that said, well, I was healthy before, and you know there were a lot of people there, I'm the one who got shot. If you said lucky, your counterfact is, I wasn't shot in the heart, you know, I stayed alive, you know? And here's the crucial part. Both counterfacts are completely hypothetical because they are invented. And because they're invented, we actually have the power in any given situation to consciously select counterfacts that make us feel fortunate rather than helpless, even through COVID. But it requires awareness, and it requires slowing down and noticing our body and noticing, you know, really being attuned to what's happening in the present, so that we don't just buy into disempowering beliefs. You know, here's the thing. Imagination is always manufacturing scenarios, both good and bad. What story are you going to manufacture this year? You're about to start the year, and it's going to be, you know, it's one that, I mean, it's going to be very, very intense and very hard, and I have a ton of compassion for you and the work that you do. Again, what type of story are you going to manufacture to create an amazing year for yourself as much as possible, you know, and for your students? You know, Albert Einstein, who's one of my heroes, said the most important decision a person has to make is to decide whether they believe in a friendly universe or a hostile universe. And Albert Einstein decided that he lives in a friendly universe. And this is a person who was persecuted and fled from the Nazis and went through World War II. And he decided that because he realized that it's a much more empowering way to live. And if he could decide that, I could decide that for myself. And look, I'd simply decide to believe that I live in a friendly universe where everything happens for me and nothing against me. And I really believe there's a force on my side who loves me and protects me. And I can find a gift in anything. And if this sounds woo-woo to you, I totally get it, okay? I just believe that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And by the way, I don't know this for a fact, but I choose to believe this is true. And this decision to choose this view of life has led me to be more resilient, more peaceful, more creative, and happier than ever. Even during times like COVID, you know, I'm not going to lie, COVID's been hard for me too. It's been hard for so many of the people that I support and me. And yet, as much as possible, I choose to choose empowering beliefs, because beliefs are the #1 predictor of success and a really important predictor of well-being. And it works both ways. It works for empowering belief and disempowering beliefs. You know, what do you really want to experience this year or accomplish? Do you want to show students that they can learn even more even more than they have learned from in the past, like even through Zoom, that they can learn a lot? Do you want to maybe show that, prove it to yourself that you can handle everything that's coming your way with dealing with everything in your family and also, you know, your work as an educator? Whatever it is that you want to prove and do and manifest in the world, pursue it with vigor, and don't let your inner critic, you know, that part of your brain that tells you that you're not enough and you're never going to be enough. And COVID provides you a great opportunity to notice that voice and to not let it win. You see, most people don't take the time to soothe themselves and their inner critic, and they let their inner critic run the show. They allow the inner critic to distort their reality, and that keeps them small, sometimes forever. But it doesn't have to be this way. And, you know, I learned this lesson for the 10th time from one of my favorite teachers who happened to be my student, actually. Sumi, one of my students, told me one day she's really grateful for the mindfulness practices we do in class, because she gained awareness one day as she was walking to her science class that she was feeling worse and worse. And she realized my inner critic was beating me up, telling me I'm so stupid, why'd I even study for the test, etc. She turned around, she told her inner critic, I'm going to give you a hug now, and you're going to go to the corner because I have a test to take. And just like Sumi, you deserve to run the show. Don't let this gremlin stay in the way of the light that shines through you. Risk being seen in all of your glory. Whether it's sharing a vision for what remote teaching can look like with your colleagues, even if you're afraid of their judgment, you know, or whether it's risking looking goofy as you play games or dance with kids on Zoom. Risk, again, being seen in all of your glory, because when you do that, your students are gonna benefit from it. Because the truth is that no matter what your gremlin tells you, you are enough. You're more than enough. You know, really common disempowering beliefs now are, I can't handle everything that's coming my way. I'm unable to teach virtually. I don't have what it takes. People will think I'm a fraud. But what if we slowed our system down and actually chose these beliefs? I have what it takes to handle anything that comes my way. I can provide quality lessons to my students online. Every problem has a solution. And if I don't have the problem, if I don't have the solution, I ask for help, you know, and I get help, and I'm enough, and my best is good enough. Now, I know my time is starting to run out, so I just want to give you this last tool, because here's the thing. I know that some days feel really hard, and you're like, I don't like this. This is so hard, and opportunities for growth, whatever. F this. This is, you know, right? I get it. And that's when it's really important to give ourselves the permission to be human. You know, I just think that when we have to move through difficult emotions by soothing ourselves, not by repressing our emotions, especially during this time of adversity. The truth is, the ability to soothe yourself in the face of adversity is what leads educators to show up powerfully for their students. So I want you to take a moment just to slow down for just one sec. And I want you to think of something that maybe is causing you a bit of some stress or a bit of suffering. And to realize that if you experience that stress or suffering, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just simply because you're human. You know, there's two groups of people in the world who don't feel difficult emotions. The first one is psychopaths, okay? The second one is dead people. So if you experience difficult emotions, congratulations, you're human, okay? And instead of beating yourself up, practice self-compassion. Take a moment to slow down. You know, when you face that fear or shame or overwhelm, take a moment to slow down. Allow yourself to feel your emotions and the sensations in your body that accompany them. Remind yourself that all sensations rise and pass. Everything arises and passes. Remember, you are not your emotions. You can become an observer of your emotions. And as much as possible, see if you can accept that whatever is showing up without beating yourself up, by being really kind to yourself. Because as Byron Katie says, when you fight against reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. So in a moment of suffering, give yourself that permission to be human. And you can even say things like, you can even talk to yourself kindly. You can say, hey, sweetie, this is a moment of suffering, but guess what? I'm not leaving you. We're going to get through this together. Yes, this year is going to be, it's a challenge. It might be really hard. And it's going to be totally okay too, because I'm not leaving you. I am here for you. And I'm not going anywhere. And for the dudes, for the guys on the call, if sweetie is too mushy, you can be like, dude, I'm here for you. So I want to share one final component, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to be with you in person for a moment. Sorry about that. Oop, sorry about that. I'm trying to stop my screen, but I can't see my my cursor. Oh, there you go. All right. So what I wanted to share with you basically is the last component. This is an important one, is that as much as possible, remember that social support and relationships are the #1 predictor of well-being. We cannot turn COVID into an opportunity, a time of growth alone. Okay, so ask for support and be there for your colleagues. Be there for them because they need your support as well. And in that vein, I just want to say that I'd like you to know that I would love to keep this journey going with you all. If you feel like you've gotten some value from what we did, it would be a real honor to work with you and your staff this year. And if you wanted to, you could just go to eqschools.com and click on Let's Talk, and we can explore this together. Lastly, I just want to say, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be at peace, and may the work that you do this year come back and pay you 100 folds in the form of love, connection, and abundance. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for having me this morning with you all, and be well. Thank you, Dana, too.
Thank you for that very powerful and helpful message, Ronnie. If this event had taken place live at our Pittman High School gymnasium, I have no doubt that we'd have 1,500 colleagues standing up and applauding you for sharing the tools that you shared with us this morning. I also believe that folks feel much more confident and excited as we welcome 14,000 students back for another school year on Wednesday. My hope is that your brief interaction with our staff this morning will only be the beginning of your work in our district. We have so much to be mindful of at a time when our minds are very full. I look forward to sharing your expertise with our school and district communities. Thank you, Ronnie. And finally, I want to leave you with this simple reminder of what it means to our students to feel welcome and included. We can all remember how we felt being invited or not to some special event, either as a child, an adolescent, or an adult. And once there, we wondered why we were invited, because our attendance and our participation was not encouraged or even maybe expected. It's imperative that come Wednesday, every student feels they have been invited to something special, and they are asked to step out on the dance floor regularly. Thank you for making sure each of our students know why they were invited and how important it is for them to have the opportunity to get their groove on in a safe, supportive space. With that said, thank you for your time and attention this morning. It's important that we had this brief time to come together to focus and recognize we're all moving in the same direction with a common purpose, creating the absolute best equitable educational experience for every student in our classrooms. They expect it and deserve it, and we owe it to each of them. As we close, I'd like to encourage you to watch TUSD's Reconnecting School video produced by our Chief Communication Coordinator, Marie Russell. I wish a special dance for all of you and an even grander one for each of our students come Wednesday. Let the music be in. Thank you.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We all a part of God's great big family. And the truth, you know, love is all we need. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day. Just you and me. Well, send them your heart so they know that someone cares, and their lives will be stronger and free, as God has shown us by turning stone to bread. And so we all must let